Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. I'm really excited for today's discussion. As this year comes to fruition, and the talks of going back to in-person events are starting to happen even more so. This is what we're going to be tackling today. That specific thing, everything events, from in-person, virtual, hybrid, whatever it is. So. Really excited to dive into this with these two experts, and they're going to give us some very insightful nuggets that we could take from the conversation and put into our event planning and our event tactics moving forward into 2022. So today, as you can see on your screen, the topic we're going to be speaking to are the 2022 sales playbook for events. New tactics, new sales tactics to 3x event pipeline, right? I know there's, you go through two events, there's so much contact information that you get, and how do you utilize that? How do you make sure you're doing the proper reach out and post event follow up? And we're going to dive into that and show you and explain to you some best practices on how to do so. But before I hand it over to our panelists, I just want to say a quick thank you. Scott and Abby, thank you both so much for taking the time to join us and bless us with your expertise. We really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you everyone for taking the time out of their day to join us. We are from Chronologic, based out of Austin, though we hail from other places. I'm Scott Logan. I run marketing at Chronologic, and this is Abby, our Director of Demand Gen Marketing and ABM. Abby, welcome. And you are hailing from where?
Thank you. I am from St. Simons Island, Georgia.
Very fancy, if you don't know, living on a nice island community out in Georgia. So we can all be super jealous of having the ocean right there. And she says it's not the ocean, but close enough for me. So let's go ahead and get going. We are going to be giving you tactics and tricks on how to, not even tricks, just better tactics, honestly, in general, on how to get more ROI out of your pipeline. We'll first talk about the philosophy behind it and why it works quickly, and then we'll get into the tactics themselves, giving that to you before actually seeing the how or the why. Giving you the how before the why won't be as impactful. So let's dive right in. We'll talk about the never-ending challenges of that we face with all events and always have. What can we do differently, and the 4 tactics to use. Let's start with a poll, though. Let's find out who is here. If you want to launch that for us, Mikey. We want to know which roles you play. Then we can, Abby and I can tailor our audience, or tailor our messaging to our audience a little bit. For all sales leaders, or maybe we have a lot of marketers on here this time around. That'd be good to know.
Awesome to see that we have so many folks all over the world, although I'm a little disappointed in the chat that I didn't see anyone's favorite sandwiches.
I'll let you know what mine is. Mine is definitely a clubhouse sandwich. Okay, that's what I'll say.
Good choice. Good choice.
Okay. Well, looks like almost everyone has participated. Just give it a couple more seconds, and then we'll.
On the sandwich note, there's a comedian, Mitch Hedberg, who makes fun of the fact that there's so much meat on a New York sandwich that he says every time he orders one, they say, "Would you like anything else with that?" And he says, "Yes, some bread and more people, please." I know, rip. But, he has, I think, 3 CDs total. They're all amazing. Please go out. It's the best, one-liner comedian of all time, I feel like.
Okay, I'm just going to end this guy here, and I'll share the results with everybody. So, we got a good spew across the board. Sales leadership and sales reps in the sales world leading, but good to see that we have a good spew.
Yeah, that's great to see, because obviously this all takes coordination across teams. You can't go to an event without the marketing team putting it together, and marketing team just sits there twiddling their thumbs and has no ROI if sales reps don't go and run things. And then if sales ops people aren't there, we'd all be living in spreadsheets. So thank you for showing us that we have a really good spread of folks here. Part of what we all face every single time we run any campaign, let alone events, as you can see by the lead sources, is that we have what we're calling the last mile problem. And this is basically the lead's last mile problem. A good analogy is why we call the last mile problem is it's easy to get a freight, like a barge from China to the US full of containers that have thousands of packages, but then to unload those packages and get them delivered to every single doorstop in the country is a challenge. Much like when we come back from a trade show and we have thousands or hundreds of leads, and we have to get those meetings booked on the calendar in order to turn it into pipeline. And taking it from that 4,000 lead list or that 500 lead list and getting them to meetings on the calendars is way more difficult than marketing's task of delivering a spreadsheet from the show. So in many regards, I'll diss on marketing here. We got it easy a little bit. So let's help out that problem. It's the wasted investment and lost opportunity due to the failure of most leads to convert to sales appointments. Ann Slow, who we actually met with this morning on this very topic, she works with us quite a bit. She says that there's leakage points that dilute marketing's effectiveness and sales ability to maximize marketing's efforts, and sales efforts for that matter. Even if sales comes up with an ABM list. I know, Abby, you probably have a few horror stories of the last mile problem affecting you. If you can chime in on this one.
I do, yes, too many to count. I know we're going to go through some examples and how we can counteract that and unpack it a little bit. But yes, and I'm sure other marketers and event marketers are on the call specifically for today's topic in terms of events. That last mile problem is very real, right? We want to see, as Scott said, the example of getting the goods to the doorstep, the list that we have coming from the events. We want to make sure those get in the sales rep's hands and followed up with.
Absolutely. And I know that we're at a sales hacker conference or webinar here, but there's a time and a place for sales cadences. And what we don't want to do is focus on the route to success. We want to just get to the success as much as possible. We don't want to have to lead chase everything because that might not be the best buying or selling experience. I just want to get to that yes faster. And if you can get a bunch of yeses and nos right away out of the way, then using your sales cadences and sequences to go get the folks who are great, have high intent, and you want to get into the cycle, just might take a little bit of work to get there. That's exactly when you should use these sales cadences. But let's try to find a way to get a yes faster and a no faster so that we don't have to waste time chasing those. We can just get our sales teams working those right away.
I love that because I know in my past, I have spent way too much time chasing something that I think could be something, but really isn't in the long run. So I'm excited to see this.
Yeah, both as an SDR and a rep, right, Mikey?
Exactly.
Like, I got to hit my goal. I know they're good. They said that one thing in that one meeting, that one time, and you're the one hanging on to that, right?
Especially when I was at the conference, I had the conversation with the person, right? And it was like, wait, I thought you really wanted to talk to me, So.
Yep. And so why do we do this? When 80% of buyers, when booking a meeting, are most annoyed by being lead chased, well, it's because of Abby and me. 78% of us are scared that there's not going to be follow-up or there will be a lack of follow-up for those events. That's why we, throw the, sales sequences with those tasks there for you. And you may just be chasing down a no. But that's the best we got right now, until now. And so we want you to chase those accounts that deserve to be, basically qualified, and you got to seek after that conversation. Everyone's busy. But there's a better way to get a higher conversion rate right away. And we call that calendar first. Now, this doesn't have to be automated. You can do it manually. And we provide a blueprint here on our website for you to do this manually, of course. But our version is the automated sending of calendar meeting invites at scale using AI-based time negotiation, so the rep doesn't have to do the back and forth of time negotiation. to book revenue-focused meetings with no human intervention. So the sending of calendar invites at scale. A lot of times you're like, well, I already get a bunch of emails and they have calendar links in them. I get a bunch of calls and, maybe people are or are not receptive to them. But it is actually a quicker route to a yes when it's at the most important time in the conversation, right when you're having that conversation with someone in the booth, right when you're at the dinner, right when you get done with the webinar, like we are here. Sending a calendar invite that is timely and tailored are the two words that we like to key in on, where the subject line relates to exactly what they engaged with and exactly what you are offering, and has additional context as to what value you're going to provide and when you're going to meet. So now they can just say yes or no. The yeses land on the calendar right away, and the nos get out of your way, and you can nurture them, and marketing can go do a better job of warming them up in order to get that yes. Because we're on the hook too. We don't want to just say, well, there were a lot of good leads in there, yeah, but they weren't ready yet. And we don't like to hear that. So this is the only step, and there's two steps in the buying process that are decided on by the buyer. It's when they accept a discovery call. Don't care how you get it, even if you use traditional methods today. They're the ones saying, yes, I want the discovery call. And then the last one is when they sign the contract saying, yes, I want it. Everything else is marketing decides when it's an MQL. You decide as a rep when it's an opportunity. You decide when it goes down to the stages. I've never said, well, I'm now a stage 3 in your buying cycle for buying XYZ software, so I can expect red lines going into my procurement stage of the buying cycle. Like, that's all done. We all decide when they move in the cycle. When they accept the discovery call and when they sign is the only time that they are saying, I want to meet with you. So let's get to that point faster. All right. We'll hand this over to Abby, our master practitioner of events, to apply what we just said to the actual event lead source and all the events that we're planning, whether you're going to them or supporting them in the follow-up. There's some alignment there that we can focus on.
Awesome. So as Scott just touched on, so, as the sayings go, time is money. And as we all know, from a marketing and sales perspective, time can kill all deals, right? So getting to that yes faster is really imperative. So let's dive into events and some of these ROI challenges. And a lot of these, given from the marketing perspective, these are significant headaches and roadblocks and issues that we run into. But also, from a sales perspective, these can be even bigger challenges as well. So just to touch on a couple of these here, especially given the pandemic and the COVID situation, it's ever changing, right? We're kind of on pins and needles. We're planning, we're going full force for in-person events, but we're also waiting till the very last moment, sometimes days before, something with COVID comes up. Hey, we're going hybrid, right? So making sure that we're all in tune and on the same page with, having all these different event facets ready to go, right? So challenge on both ends there in communicating that. Missing incorrect data, targeting, intent, contact information. We'll go through some use cases, specifically like in-person events, for example. We have missing incorrect data. It's getting put in the CRM. We have, business cards that the team is collecting and using, different data, append tools and things like that. A big challenge, right? To make sure, again, timeliness is key here. How do we follow up, make sure, the speed to lead is there, capture their attention and interest when it's hot. On the speed to lead note, speed is the key to lead conversion, as we all know. Contact timing, and again, going back to some of those, long outreach efforts that we have before and after the event, connecting before, during, after, that's a challenge, especially on the sales end there. And then how many people can speak to, all of these things, kind of summarizing here, misalignment with marketing and sales, that can be an extreme frustration, making sure communication is always flowing, again, kind of rolling with some of these ever-present changes with a lot of the events that we have, and making sure that marketing and sales are completely in sync in terms of, kind of what the run of show is, what the follow-up is, and that sort of thing. So a lot of challenges. I'm sure, everyone here on the call today can relate to these to some extent, and are living these. So we'll go through how we can hopefully overcome these here very quickly.
But before I dive into we dive into our next poll here, I want to get a bit of a pulse check on both from you guys as well as the audience on in-person events and what events are going to look like moving into 2022. I know we had during our pre-call, we had a brief conversation about, some companies are full blown with it, some are more hesitant, some are not even close. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think, or even your approach at Chronologic moving into 2022. What events are going to look like for this year? I'll start with you, Scott.
Yeah. So for us, and our approach is the Jerry Maguire approach: show me the money. And if there's a vendor or partner or industry event that produces ROI for us, Abby and I are taking different strategic approaches to do something differently to convert more from that event, whether it's in person or not. So if we go to a booth, what can we do in the booth that's different than just a gimmick, a prize, and throwing up a lead scanning barricade? We literally in the last one didn't even put any kind of backdrop that was like custom made. It was just like pipe and drape, and then had a massive Chronologic neon sign with a neon lit bean toss game, and we stuck out like a sore thumb. An all black booth with big bright white lights shining. You could see us from like a row away. So we're trying to find different ways to approach each one of these conferences, and just follow where our conversion rates are and where our pipeline is one of the main things.
Yeah, no, I love that too, because there's at so many conferences, it's people just going out and just doing the badge scan, right, and stuff like that. How do we get people to come to us so we don't even have to do that, right? We can just have conversations. I love that. Abby, what do you think? I know you guys are on the same side here, but do you think it's gonna, we're gonna move back to, we're looking towards the full in-person situation, or is it going to be kind of more of a who knows balancing act throughout 2022?
It might end up being a balancing act, but it looks like everything is trending right now, at least towards in-person. We have a couple of in-person events coming up over the next several weeks, so I'm sure a lot of you are likely in that same boat, and virtual as well, as Scott mentioned. We're kind of doing a diversified strategy, but things are definitely looking fairly promising, right now, at least today, for in-person, and thinking through, different tactics of how do we do things a little differently? How do we stand out, again, be more memorable? Everything that you guys mentioned, we're testing out, QR codes and some fun, new, different things that we can utilize that we'll dive into a little bit deeper here. But yes, a little of everything, but definitely in person is full steam ahead right now.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I love hearing that, right? Because I'm very optimistic to get back to in-person stuff. I miss interacting with everybody, right? So, cool, awesome. Okay, guys. Well, we're gonna just launch a quick poll here. Give me one momento before I throw it up.
Okay. Yeah, so what we'll do here is we'll get a sense of what your primary challenges are from the ones we just addressed. Once Mikey throws the poll into the screen.
There you go.
What are the biggest event-based challenges? Adapting to the changing hybrid event schedule. I'll jump back here. Missing the data. I mean, batch scans are great, but when batch scans come back with big data gaps, they're like, well, I thought we were going to get that piece of data. And that was what our follow-up was pivoting off of. There's a lot of issues that can happen even there. Speed to lead is a forever thing. If you're happy with your speed to lead rates, then I'm going to say right now, you shouldn't be, especially after we get done with this. We can always do better. And then alignment, marketing, and sales. I think most of us are there. Maybe some people can throw into the chat if you're happy with your alignment between marketing and sales.
That's marketing relationship, right?
It's marketing. Jen is happy. I think we
Okay.
are too.
That's good to hear.
All right. I'm just going to end her here. Yeah. And just give me 1 sec before to share the results.
After this poll, we're going into the actual tactics. So hang on tight, and we're going to get to what you can actually do to improve your events. Yeah, the adapting part, of course, that definitely we're all facing. And switching last minute to virtual is still common and insane.
Well, that happened to us the other back in September. We had everything planned out, ready to go in person 2 weeks before our first event. Sorry, we're going totally virtual. We had to scratch it all. We didn't even end up really doing an actual event, right? So it's yeah, I totally can. That would be my vote if I had one.
Yeah. Abby, what stands out for you here?
Lead to lead. I figured, that would be up there, but adapting, I think we're all on the same page there. And, hopefully, we're still at the mercy of this pandemic situation that will be behind us soon. But yeah, agile is the key here, right, guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, let's talk about one of our first 4 scenarios, virtual events. Many of us are still going to have virtual events and large and small scale ones. So let's take a look at those. And these are more on the large scale, correct? Abby?
Yeah, sorry, my audio just went out. All right, so virtual events and talking through putting calendar first into action here. So some big events and some areas to key in on here that we personally experienced last year in 2021. So one of those being the Sales Hacker event. Love Sales Hacker events. So thank you guys again for joining us here. So one of these in the gray box you can see on the right hand side. So messaging, again, as Scott mentioned, very timely, very tailored, making sure we have that rich context that speaks specifically, with the value points, having an agenda as part of that calendar first motion, and then the timing aspect. So with that being said, we held a session at the Sales Hacker virtual event. And as a result, we saw 131 accepted meetings, and that was over the course of just 10 days. I know, speaking to my past experiences at other organizations, we didn't see anywhere near that number. And typically, with that playbook motion of having, a couple weeks of follow up with the SDR teams and the AEs and that sort of thing, normally it would take 3 weeks-ish at least to see, that anywhere near that level of accepted meetings as a result, and drove significant pipeline, which the team closed quite a bit of. And then as well, we had one with demand gen reports, specifically to marketers and ABM Summit. So similar results there as well. 98 accepted meetings from that one, and significant pipeline there as well. So to key in on the bottom right of the screen, 12 to 20% meeting acceptance rate is what we're typically seeing across the board for our event follow-ups, in this case for virtual events. So a couple things that Scott and I have been doing a little bit differently now, using calendar first from a virtual event standpoint, is that when we have the list, so everyone's filling out the form, registering to attend the event, we can launch the follow-up meetings live on the spot. So for instance, like if Scott was speaking right now, I could be sending the calendar first invites out. And again, super timely because everyone's engaged, paying attention to the webinar then. It's kind of the wow factor moment. And then you can see the messaging that's tied to this event and, working with you specifically after if you're interested in moving forward. And that way you can, again, just hit yes, get to that path even faster, or no, or you can say, propose a new time, that sort of thing. Yeah. That we've seen has worked significantly well for us.
And Abby, someone is asking, well, how do I do this today? So obviously our platform, you can connect to your CRM or or HubSpot, whatever you're using, to be able to do your filters and send the invites out from the reps, from their own calendars, and then it goes out. But if you don't have a platform like ours or our platform, what I would do is, you have these polling questions. The polling questions, I always view them as qualifiers. I'm kind of giving my secret sauce on the webinar that I'm also doing this on, but it's a qualifier for how hot that lead is for you, right? What are the pain points that you're facing? I want to know that before I hand that off to a sales rep. So IT security, what is the IT security success or pain point you're most challenged with, or solution you're investigating for this year, whatever it is. And then you can take that section of the list, those people who registered, attended, and answer the question exactly how you wanted them to answer to be qualified enough. And then those you could send over to their assigned SDR AE and have, what's that, like a dozen per person? Have those people take, 20 minutes to send out a dozen invites that are tailored to that conference, to that talk track that you have, right when that ends, or even during it, and try and get those, or at the end of the day at the very least, to try and get those meetings on the calendar right then and there. That way you're not beholden to them answering the phone or your email being seen in the middle of the swarm of messages we get all day long. So I actually did this myself before moving to Chronologic, and I wasn't able to buy software at the time because it was in the middle of the pandemic and budgets were frozen, but it actually worked quite well. And the reps were pretty excited when they were able to get some accepted meetings right away.
Love that.
All right. Any questions on that and large-scale virtual events? Okay.
I think I got one here.
Sure.
So just to break it down a bit more for myself. So sorry, I was just looking at the chat there. So are you asking your reps, or are you utilizing, during the actual event when it's happening, are you sending out essentially an invite right then to, book a meeting while it's happening, so it's front and center right away? Or is it instantly right after the event? Or are you doing kind of both, where you send one out and then a post kind of response as well? What does that process look like? Just to dive a bit deeper into it for those that might not fully grasp it.
Sure. Both. So, we have been doing the last couple motions, a few webinars and virtual events that Scott and I have been presenting on. What we will do, we just, in this case, for our example, we introduce calendar first. You can see how, everything operates. And then we can say, okay, in real time, essentially, this is the calendar first motion in action. Check your inboxes, check your phones, and receive it that way. And then again, you can quickly say yes, no, propose a new time, or afterwards. And we'll talk through a couple of examples here. That was a great question, Mikey. Thank you. We see that we get the most acceptance, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong here, typically about 70 to 80% or so of folks typically say yes as soon as they are getting the meeting invite the first time around. But usually we see over the course of 2 days or so, like we'll see the majority, usually 50-ish%, come in with that first round, especially when engaged. Again, timely and tailored is our key there. And then I'd say within 24 to 48 hours, we'll see the other 50% or so come in. So
yeah. Typically what we found, the timeliness of it is very, very important. So from 0 days, so the day of the event, to 2 days after, that's the traditional sweet spot. And what we found is, and we were getting between 15 to 25% lead to discovery meeting conversion rates there. After that second day, it significantly increases 5 to 10%, and then another 5 to 10% for every 2 days after that. We pressured ourselves to say, can we do better? And we went and just did a straight up, in the middle of the session, called it out. Are you interested in it? When your cybersecurity demo is at its coolest point, that's when you would make sure that you draw attention to the demo invite. And we've almost doubled conversion rates from just sending it out the day after. Now, if it's your own event and you control the list, you can do it right then and there. if you're at an event like this where you're a sponsor and the list is sent to you after the fact, send it out and have everything set, the templates and everything, and the sales team knows what they're doing, so that when you do scrub the list within an hour or less, or however long it takes you to do that, you get it to the team, and then they can send it out right then and there. Hopefully that's, the next morning.
Yeah, and like you said, timing is everything, especially in sales and post events, right? So awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So let's move into when you're in person. And Abby and I were excited to actually go to our first in-person event like late last summer with AISP. It's the American Institute of Sales Professionals, if you don't know what it is. And so, Abby, you can kind of walk us through what we did with a 60-person in-person conference.
Sure. So a lot of the examples that we just illustrated from a virtual perspective and, per Mikey's question, so applying this to the in-person aspect. So we had about 60 people in the room talking through best practices. It was early in the morning, so Scott got everyone on their feet, got them excited, going through our presentation. And again, based on, your prospects and whatever you're selling, that crucial pivotal moment. We had the invite sent out like right as the presentation was beginning. They were like locked in, zoned in, and engaged in the presentation. And then at that wow factor moment, we said, okay, if you're interested, if you want to see similar results, go ahead, pull out your phone, look at your computer, and we could see in real time. We had the screen up to illustrate, okay, here's all the accepted meetings that are coming in. Again, no pressure. If you're interested, go ahead and accept. If not, decline. And as a result, we could see, 50% of the in-room attendees again accepted there on the spot. And then we saw, the last half trickle in over the next day or so. And that resulted in 22 discovery calls for us. And again, most of them, as a marketer, especially, and a sales team, how often do we get to leave these events and see that ROI? The first day or even 2 days later. Usually we're lucky if it's a week. We've scrubbed the list, we've cherry picked, we decide, the follow-up routine. It's a big process, right? So it's pretty cool to be able to say like, okay, we already kind of know where we sit of how effective this event was, 48 hours later. It contributed to a lot of pipeline. And then kind of going into that X factor here, if you will, having that calendar invite in real time, is definitely a strong talking point. It's a little bit different. Again, this is a new tactic in engaging for that breakout talk. And it worked out very well for us. And some of our other customers are trying this and seeing similar results as well.
I love that. And Scott, sorry to interrupt at any time here. I would also love to know, I'd love to see how this and how it is working in real time, booking that situation, because the events that I've gone through, I totally understand where the time to lead from getting those leads that I worked when I was there to then actually reaching out, and then how much have fallen off since that point is just, it's very frustrating, right? Because you have these good conversations and they end up having multiple other conversations, and then they might fall within everybody else. But on a side note, I would love to just get your guys' thoughts, for everyone out there that are in the audience trying to understand about what in person might look like this year, how that event went, being in person. Really like the logistics of it, and what it looked like, and how you guys thought of the overall experience.
Yeah. On that, I've been to now 4 in-person events in the last 3 or 4 months, and what seems to be the common thing that I'm seeing out there, I'm not saying that you should do this or that I'm suggesting this or anything, I'm just saying what I've seen. And there was that one 7,000 person event, 2 60 people events, and 1 300 person event. And of those 4, all of them said you need to have a vaccine going into it, a negative test on top of the vaccine going into it. And then at those, people immediately took the mask off. Like, mask suggested in those environments, and nobody wore the masks, but no one complained either. In the 7,000 person one, it was only a test required, I believe, Abby, and it was like 50-50 mask on, mask off, and the hotel was trying to keep the masks on, but in the expo hall area, it was like a your own preference type of a thing, even though you were supposed to, is what it kind of seemed like. Just to be totally honest and observant of what I saw. Abby, I don't know what context you'd add to some of that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. There was definitely added safety measures, which I think was reassuring for a lot of folks, and a lot of it was a comfortability level. In having face-to-face conversations, oftentimes, people would put their mask up if they felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We can still carry on as normal and that sort of thing. So that seems to be the route that a lot of vendors are, and hosts of these events are taking, that we've experienced at least.
Yeah, and I didn't train this, but I feel like we should have, because I ended up doing it once because we worked the trade show floor as well, and I would always have my mask with me, and if the person that I wanted to talk to had a mask on, I would put it on to talk to them, and then I would either keep it on or keep it off for anyone who didn't have it, depending on where it was at, how busy the room was, that type of thing. But I think those are all things to now be conscious of.
Cool. No, awesome. Thanks for the context, guys, because I'm sure there's some a few people in the audience that are curious, and myself. So thank you.
The only thing I'll add to this slide here, to get back to the slides note, although that was a really good talk track or sidetrack there, is if you don't have a platform that just launches the invites, what you could do, because like in an in-person intimate event, like less than 50 people, typically you do have the contact list ahead of time in a lot of those environments, or you can get it if you're a sponsor. So what I would do is divide that up ahead of time, just like you would block out a call block. Just say, hey, presentation is going to start at 1 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to block off from 12:45 to 1 o'clock, and everyone has their template ready to go that marketing provided, and we're just going to send our invites. That way you can still do that motion that Abby was talking, where we literally stop you can't see my phone, it's invisible. There it is. You can stop the conversation and presentation at the coolest part and say, hey, just in case you wanted to continue a specific conversation, blah, 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 blah. Our sales team has put a calendar or an invite on your calendar for a time in the future to be able to carry this on in more detail. So there's still ways to do that with even less effort than you would to organize a call block, honestly.
Yeah.
And then the in-person stuff. This is my most excited. I get most excited about this next piece that Abby's going to go into, which is the trade show booth and VIP dinner. So I'm just going to be quiet, otherwise I'll railroad this whole section. Abby, you go for it.
No, it's great. We already covered a lot of this. So feel free, everyone, to ask questions if you want us to take a little bit of a deeper dive. But, as Scott mentioned, this was a bigger show. This was in Las Vegas back in November. So a couple different things that we did here, and not using, technology or anything like that. The first thing I want to jump into is a VIP dinner. So again, we're just in the business of testing, what type of meeting structure would work great. We know all these different new use cases that we've covered that we can send, these personalized meetings out at scale. But, regardless of that aspect, what can we do to create like a FOMO wow factor to like lure people in? And oftentimes at events, and, say you have like a VIP, like one-off dinner, or in conjunction at an event, like in this case, the SDRs, it's typically difficult, right? It's hard enough to get someone on the phone or through email and then build a rapport with them, let them know why it's valuable for them to go to the dinner, all of that. Oftentimes they're not going to even be there. So we decided
to time out real quick on that talk track, Abby. In the chat or with your hand raising feature, how many people have found it difficult to get people to a dinner or get pushback from sales because getting people to a dinner is not hitting my quota, not hitting my goal? I've always had that pushback. I don't know, Mikey, if you had that scenario with some of your stuff, like getting someone to a dinner seems awesome from marketing's perspective, but sales is like, I'm not hitting my goals when I do that.
Totally. And it's tough too to even get people there, right?
Yeah.
And to get them to like you mentioned earlier, is like the RSVP, and no, I totally agree, and it is challenging because it's a lot of effort, and two, yeah, there's a good chance you're not really helping me too much with my overall goal, right? Aside from a great connection and moving my network within the organization. But I agree. Yeah, it is it's a lot of work for not the most reward, I guess.
Yeah. So Abby, we've actually, it has nothing to do with our platform. We just found a better way to do this. You can't even use our platform to do this, but we found a way to get people to the dinner without any interaction whatsoever from the SDR or sales team, and being able to get a very high dinner attendance rate. So Abby, you can walk us through this, because everyone can do this right now, no matter what.
Yeah, to Mikey's point, who doesn't want to have a fancy dinner with great people? But sometimes, people are like, I know I'm going to be hard pitched to, I'm tired, all the reasons. So we took all these things into consideration, and we thought, what if we find like our key target account of people that we know will be, in this area attending this event that we would love to have at this dinner, and all in the same industry, a lot of them in the same circles and that sort of thing. So we just took a list of, say, the top 100 that we would love to have attend our dinner, and then we sent them an invite. You can use, your Google Calendar, whichever, mail provider you're using, your email provider, through Outlook, and we just put everyone's email on there, and so that way everyone had the visibility. And as people are starting to accept, their peers are going back and looking at that list multiple times and like, oh, okay, perfect, I would love to spend some time with this person. And then we also accompany it with an email to let them know, like, hey, we sent you this invite, we would love to have you join us. And then we had a lot of different instances where we had some executives at these shows, this one in particular, that said, hey, I was spending a ton of time on the trade show floor, I was starving, and I took a peek at your dinner invite, and there was a bunch of folks that I was wanting to talk to, and I hadn't had a chance to yet. Like, this was the perfect opportunity. And then, you'll have some variations, of course. It's great for planning as well. You'll have everybody's accepting ahead of time, and then life happens and schedules changes. You'll have some declines, some additions last minute, but we've tried this a couple of different events that we've had, and it has worked extremely well. So definitely recommend trying that tactic, and it's pretty cool that they can see who's actually attending and then go from there.
Yeah, I love that. We knew we could scale the room from about 20 to 40 people. So we knew we had a window of 20 to 40 people. So we thought, all right, how many people could an SDR team get, like the highest performing SDR team, get to a dinner with like the best rapport building capabilities? We're like 50%. But we're probably not going to get 50% because we don't have that. So let's guess 30%, right in the middle of a 20 to 40% conversion rate. And that's literally exactly what we got. And we knew that we could add more names if we wanted. I think we even started with 50 names just to see what it would be. And then we increased from there until we got to our desired number. And the FOMO factor, people literally talked about, as Abby just said. It was great. We also did it with a group of 12 people that we wanted, had a 10-person reservation, and we got 8 of them to accept. So it was more intimate. We all knew each other way more. We was at the smaller consolidated environment, not a big trade show. So we knew the acceptance rate would be higher. So we only invited 12 and we got 8 to accept, and we had like up to 10 people we could accommodate. So this is one of my favorite things that we learned from this.
Yeah, it's not super intrusive, right? They're sort of like hot because we're familiar with each other. They're familiar with who we are, who's attending, all of that. So it's not, one of those putting a cold meeting invite on their calendar. They're there, they're wanting to attend, they're familiar, that sort of thing. And it's kind of a low effort aspect on our end, right? The SDRs don't have their call email list that they're going through for a couple weeks. I think we sent out 1 or 2 emails, and then we ended up with, a much higher rate of acceptance than we've seen in the past with, the more manual sales motion towards that. So highly recommend that approach. And then, so one other cool thing that we started doing at the in-person events as well is that, the big thing, challenge from a sales and marketing perspective. So we talked about the ROI when you're leaving events in terms of accepted meetings. So typically we get the list, or we get the scan our list, maybe the day of, could be a week after, go through, all that process that we mentioned. A lot of those leads end up falling through the cracks, right? So sales reps are having one-on-one great conversations. Maybe they're jotting down some quick notes on their cards. And then we all know how these big shows go, right? Typically we go to dinners, say we have some late night drinks, and then we have to put these leads in, information, prospect info into our CRM late at night. Maybe we've forgotten at that point. You have a bunch of conversations back to back. They start to all blend together. So a lot of things falling through the cracks there.
And you have Mikey doing this. What are you going to do with this card? It's I'm going to hide the contact information, but the VP of sales for Southwest Airlines, if you're selling sales software like you do, or the organization, what are you going to do with that card or that contact if you have a badge scanner and a pen and a conversation going? What are you going to do? You're going to scan the badge, or what are you going to do?
I'm probably gonna, if I've got the card and the pen and the scanner, I'll probably scan the badge and then use the card to write down some notes on the back or something like that.
Most reps would say, you're actually really nice, because I think you cater to marketing a little bit. You kind of get our pain points. But
Yeah.
Most are going to say, I'm not giving a scan. I'm not giving this lead to sales. This is my lead. I'm not having an SDR follow up with this. I'm going to go write my note, put that puppy in my pocket, and then never address anything again. And then you don't get to, and then you just lose that. Someone here, Jen, said you pull out your phone and you schedule a meeting. Bingo. Yeah. That's exactly what we thought. What do the best reps do? But what do you do when you have that happen? Marketing loses all of that information. And sales is like, I don't care. I got the lead. I got the deal. I closed that deal. I stole that thing. Like, yeah, you should have stolen that thing. But guess what? That deal that you closed doesn't get attributed to that show anymore. And now Abby and I have no business case to get you into that situation again. And so we found a happy medium with some tools that we had already at our disposal. Abby, if you want to kind of show them, tell them how we enable the reps in the booth to have their cake and have marketing eat it too.
Yes, huge ROI challenge when all of those prospects' lead records fall through the cracks and not attributed, right? Because then we're not getting that ROI. As Scott mentioned, we can't come back. Like, that's a lose-lose situation for us. So I love that someone kind of already teed this up for us here. So we're scheduling meetings on the spot. So we had just a quick form so that whenever our reps are having great conversations, they're ready to move to the next step. The prospect's telling them, I would love to meet with you. I want to learn more about this. And they could just just kind of discreetly throughout the conversation, put their email in. The reps we had a little drop down for them on the form so that we knew specifically who to route those meetings to. The rep would put their email in, carry on the conversation. It was like a very quick, couple seconds type of thing. And then as they're talking and finishing up the conversation, the prospect would look at their phone and say, oh, perfect, great, we're meeting next Tuesday. It has all the great context, because oftentimes by the time, you have a great conversation, get home, back to the daily grind, things are out of sight, out of mind. So it's already taken care of. Everything's attributed. Marketing has insight into it. So we know who's accepting those meetings, and then it's a win-win for the sales team, of course, because they already have that booked for them, and it was super minimal effort. And then it was a wow factor for the recipient to have that conversation come full circle, that they already have the meeting on the calendar.
Yeah, we had one rep had almost 20 meetings already sent out with like over half of them accepted before she even got onto the plane, before she left the show. She had those discovery calls booked. And because our system, it was just entering the prospect's email and selecting the rep, our system tracked it because it pushed out the invite. In your environment, you could do, even without ChronoLogic, you could do that where you just have the same form, you fill out the email, you then select the list or the rep from the drop-down list, and then that could even go to a view that you give them in Salesforce, and just use a web to lead form because it's only an internal thing. It doesn't have to be fancy. And then the rep can just, after the end of the day, go and send out, just say, hey, what you're going to do is you're going to look at this list that I created for you in Salesforce and just send your meeting invite. Here's the template to all these people before you go to bed, or maybe the next morning if it is a rough night because you're at a trade show. That type of thing. You still get that tracking, and they still have confidence in marketing that that lead goes to them.
Mm-hmm. See, that's exciting, right? Because it's like you're leaving the event knowing that you already can see potential success, right? Whereas, right, and then that's always, I think, for probably a lot of people here as well, that it's like, okay, how successful is this actually going to turn out once we get back and they start getting hit by everybody, right? So it's like once it's already there, you have everything booked, you have the conversations moving forward. That's got my gears grinding, to say the least.
Exactly. Yes, it's very memorable because it's different, right? It's kind of interrupting that normal process flow playbook, if you will, for events, and then it's a win-win for both sides. So marketing, we know, okay, we came in, we can already justify our spend. We can choose, as Scott and I have done on the spot, like, hey, this went really well for us. We can sign up for, the spring conference for the same show because look what we already have coming out of it. And then the sales team has that trust from the marketing perspective that it's just a really quick process. They have their follow-up. It's very minimal effort on their part. And then, they're ready to rock and roll on the follow-up as soon as they get home.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even think of that part, Abby. How many times do you have to sign up for the next show at the show to get a discount and booth selection priority? A lot of the big ones, if not all of them. Now, if you schedule that for the last day of the show, you literally can point back to if your reps have discovery calls booked on their calendars or not, by how many of those form submissions, because they're doing auto filtering. If it's a lead, they'll scan it. If it's a lead that's like, ooh, this is a great discussion, I'm going to win this deal in this quarter, and you just see who submitted there. Now you're signing that paperwork with more confidence, as opposed to risking what could be a massive chunk of your budget moving forward.
Totally.
Absolutely.
All right, how to get started. So, Abby, much like the form we've been telling today, we are going to send out a calendar invite, and we're going to have you be able to talk to a rep to talk through not only event use cases, but everything from queuing up renewals and cross-sells for those who are doing account management and you have a pooled set of customers that you need to reach out to. Those meetings are coming. They know those meetings are coming. There's no use in wasting time chasing them down. If you can just launch it based off of a trigger in Salesforce or something, that'd be great. Also, demo requests, whatever. Stop chasing the yeses and just get everyone to the point that they want to be at, which is just the meeting. So the 3 takeaways here: send the meeting invite as the point of interest, at the exact point of interest, or as close to it as you possibly can get. Tailor it with a subject line. There's a really cool game that we have that you play on that calendar first landing page, chronological.ai/calendar first, where you just ask your coworker, or even just ask the wall if you're working at home, just say out loud the subject line in the sentence of, hey, Abby, would you like to join and if your subject line to your invite is Abby plus Scott, would you like to go to an Abby plus Scott today? That could be kind of awkward when taken out of context. But if you're like, would you like to go to a review calendar first with the chronologic demo today? Because that's the name of your subject line. You could ask that to someone at work and not feel super awkward and have them say yes. So think of it in terms of that. And then include the agenda in the body. Again, in that walkthrough, that blueprint from that website that we have here, you can go ahead and see the exact outline of what a solid agenda looks like for an invite, as we've sent tens and hundreds of thousands of meetings that have been accepted from our customers and have some best practices built up around them. So that's what we have for you, Mikey.
This has been fantastic. We're right on the hour here, so we're just on time. Thank you guys so much. This has been super helpful, and I know for everybody else in the audience moving into the 2022 year, uncertain with what events are going to look like, we've got some high quality content here to go off of in all aspects, from in-person, virtual to hybrid. I know I learned so much, so I really appreciate the insights, the knowledge, and the examples from your experiences. So Abby and Scott, thank you both so much for taking the hour out of your day to join us and bless the community with your knowledge. And anybody, if there's anybody in the audience that didn't get a question answered or have questions post event, go find Scott and Abby on LinkedIn, connect with them. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. But other than that, in the meantime, thank you all for taking the time to join us. I'll let you go and kill the rest of Q1, and then hopefully you guys get to be back in person too shortly. And I hope we all cross paths at some point in the future. But again, Scott and Abby, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm really excited to put these into play when the times come.
Great. Thank you for having us.